Welcome back to Conversations with Jennifer. Jennifer's an estate planning attorney, and today we're going to be talking about where do you keep your estate planning documents? like, so Jennifer, like people go through all this work to get this, I don't want to call it fancy binder, but really nice binder with all their life's wishes in there. What do you do with it? Where do you put it? Like,
Okay.
where does it go?
So, we've kind of shifted away from the fancy binder these days. A lot of clients, as most of us, are trying to shift a bit more to having electronic copies of documents or just paper copies because those binders are lovely, but they're big and they're
Yeah.
bulky. But estate planning, I'll say, is one of the kind of antiquated areas of the law where we still want originals and we still need originals and wet signatures. COVID was a perfect example of suddenly clients wanted to sign their documents, but they wanted to sign it via DocuSign, or can I just sign it electronically? And estate planning is just not that way yet. So holding on to your original documents is critical. And so where to put them or keep them is a great question. My firm, for my clients, we hold all of our clients' originals. We kind of take on that burden. We store them offsite at a facility that is secure, temperature controlled, fireproof, and all those good things to keep those originals safe. We keep electronic copies in our office, and then we provide a few different options for clients. Some still want the binder, but just paper copy, email copy, or we'll send a thumb drive with an electronic version. And then they will frequently ask, okay, where should I keep these documents? Some clients, because they're just copies, but some clients keep them in a safe deposit box. Some clients keep them at a safe that they have at their home. But I essentially recommend just keeping them wherever you would keep something you want to keep safe. But we hold all the originals. So that kind of helps alleviate some of the stress for at least my clients as far as what am I going to do with those original documents.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so, like, having these options is really good because every person is different, right? Like,
Correct.
people store documents differently. Like you said, my mom still wants everything in paper copy,
Yep.
whereas I want everything digital. And
And that's exactly it. So I just had a signing appointment today, and that's always a part of our conversation is okay, how do you want to receive these documents? I also get frequently asked in those same signing appointments, who should get copies of these documents, Jennifer? And that's always an interesting question from my perspective. And what I typically will recommend clients, just from my personal experience, is it's better for you to keep control of the documents and not have a bunch of copies floating out there, but give your important people or your successors my business card or my contact information, and you tell them, look, this is the person, this is my estate planning attorney. She's the one who you need to contact if anything happens to me. So you need copies of my documents. You need a copy of my healthcare directive. You need a copy of my financial power of attorney. So keep their documents close to their vest, not have a bunch of copies out there, but again, give them my information. And the reason why I tend to recommend that is people, if they make any changes to the documents, then you need to track down all the different people who have copies of your
yeah,
documents out there.
yeah,
And people get weirdly sensitive about being removed as a successor trustee, even though, and we've talked about this in the past, like being a trustee is not fun at all.
yeah, it's a lot of work.
And so sometimes, being removed as a trustee, honestly, is a kindness. It's a gift. They're like, our kids are older. You don't have to act. But yeah, people get sensitive about that. Or, it could be sensitive. It could be, I'm removing you as a beneficiary from my trust, and now I have to get that document back from you.
Yeah.
So I always recommend holding on to them, and again, not giving out too many copies. Obviously, certain places like your medical provider, your doctor, they should have a copy of your healthcare directive. So providing that to people is important. Or financial advisors oftentimes need copies of the estate planning documents. So those sort of third parties who are helping you either manage your personal affairs or your financial affairs, they can get copies, but it's, giving it to other people in the world, I typically don't recommend. So,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good point to make because, When my father passed away, before he passed away, the doctor comes into the hospital room, talks to my mom and I, and says, "All right, we need to make some decisions about end of care, life, or healthcare decisions.
Yeah.
Do you have a healthcare director?" And of course, I'm like, "Of course we do."
Yeah.
And he said, "Great, let me have it." And I was like, "Oh, it's at home."
Yeah.
And both my mom and I, we didn't want to leave my dad's bedside, right?
No.
And that's extremely tough. Fortunately for us, we had somebody at our house that was
Oh, good.
coming to the hospital so they could grab that fancy binder, right?
Yep.
But having those digital copies secure, easy to access when you need it, right, as
Mhm.
well, is
Yeah.
important.
So that's another scenario where we're contacted as well. I've received numerous calls from clients. I'm in the hospital or we're headed to the hospital. Can you please either fax or email a copy of the healthcare directive to this doctor or this medical provider? And that is, that's an important part of our job as well, as making sure the right people get your documents when you need them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And sometimes you may not be with your doctor, right? Like I
Correct.
have clients that are traveling. They're like,
Yep.
I guess you call it snowbirds, where they're in Boston and Palm
Yep.
Springs, and they're going back and forth. And you may, being on a cruise or on vacation somewhere, and need some of these documents. What about like old documents? Like, I remember like my parents' original trust was like 1970 something, then 80s. And then what do you do with old paperwork, I guess?
Okay. So typically when we do estate planning documents, when the client already has existing documents, generally the wills, the healthcare directives, and the financial powers of attorney, right in the document, we fully revoke and replace any prior versions of that document. So right in the heart of the document, we're revoking and replacing those documents. So any of those documents, once you've signed, you can shred. We use a shredding service here, so I have some clients who show up here to my office with all their old documents and hand them to me, and we take care of shredding them securely for them. But certainly destroying and shredding those documents is really important. For your trust, it's a little bit different, because a trust, once you sign the trust, it's a living document, it's an immediately existing document. And over time, you may amend it or restate it, but you're always going to keep the original title and signing date of that document. So in that document, we're confirming that we are fully restating the terms of the trust, but the trust is going to keep its original signing date. Even for that document, obviously, if it's just an amendment, you have to keep all of the iterations because you're just amending isolated provisions. But if you're fully restating the trust, I will typically recommend to clients to shred the prior versions of the trust as well. They can give me a copy and I can scan it onto our system. So we always have electronic versions, but getting rid of the paper copies is important. It's important because it can cause confusion. Again, it can cause kind of an emotional reaction. Why did mom and dad change? Who's going to be a successor
Why
trustee?
am I no longer a trustee?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And
Yeah.
again, oftentimes it's a gift, but it doesn't always feel that way. So getting rid of all of those documents is really important. And I'll walk through it with clients often. They'll bring in their binders and we'll walk through and say, this has been replaced, this has been replaced, you keep this, and we'll scan everything else and then shred it ourselves for the clients.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Thank you. For those of you that are out there watching this, please hit the like button. It helps other people find content similar to this. And if you have any questions or comments, please place them below. And if you have questions what to do with certain documents and you want some advice of where to look, please contact Jennifer or myself, and we can help you go through that decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you.